lose weight without losing muscle? And is it possible? Well, I'm Noah Casella. I'm a registered dietitian, and I actually focus on helping people lose weight and actually build muscle, if not maintain the muscle that they do have. So this question is right up my alley, and I'm really looking forward to answering it with you guys today. In order to answer this question, how do we lose weight without losing muscle? We're going to use a 3-part series, so to speak, where we're going to talk about nutrition, we're going to talk about exercise, and we're going to talk about supplementation. And under each, we'll go into more detail about specific actionable steps that you can take. So be sure to stay tuned. When you look up online right now, how much weight loss is muscle loss versus fat loss, you'll see a common thread of around 25% muscle loss and 75% fat loss. However, when we look at the research a little bit deeper, it seems to point out that this ratio of fat loss to muscle loss is wildly variable, which means there are a ton of different things that are going to affect your fat loss versus your muscle loss. For some, that could be higher than 25%. For some, that could be lower than 25%. And this is all going to depend on genetics, gender, activity level, diet, nutrition, pretty much all the things that we do all day, every day are all going to have an impact on how much fat loss versus how much muscle loss that we actually have. In this video, we're specifically going to break down several different components of these lifestyle factors so that you can optimize, so to speak, your weight loss journey for fat loss and not muscle loss. Why is muscle important? This is a really good question, and there are several reasons to why muscle is important. First, we lose it as we age. As we get older, our muscles get smaller and weaker over time. This makes it really hard for us to get around when we're older. This can really decrease our overall quality of life as we age. Muscle is also a really supportive tissue, meaning it's going to help support our posture, our walking, our technique and form in the gym. So having a strong posture, having a strong structure is probably going to mean that you're going to get injured less. Muscle is also a very functional tissue, meaning we use muscle every day to move us around, to brush our teeth, to get in the car and drive. We need to act with this environment and world we live in. So it's a very functional tissue that is very important to being a human being. Lastly, muscle is really metabolically demanding. What that means is it costs a lot of energy to carry around muscle. And so the more muscle we have, the more energy we can burn at rest, which will help us in the long run keep our metabolism kind of firing on all cylinders, so to speak. Lastly, muscle isn't really easy to build. It's actually very difficult to build. You have to put a lot of time and effort into making sure that you are eating enough protein and you're strength training in order to make sure that you're taking care of your muscles so that they can either grow or at least maintain their current size. For that reason, it should always be a priority to try and preserve, maintain, or even grow your muscle tissue over the course of your life because it'll have such a big impact, not only in the long term as far as maintaining your independence and mobility as an aging adult, but in the short term, it's going to make sure that you have good posture and correct technique and function at the gym. The last piece that I'll say as far as why muscle is so important is the vanity component, right? We all want to look good naked. That's no surprise to anybody. And muscle plays a huge role in that vanity piece. Overall, muscle is really important. Let's jump into our topics, starting with nutrition. Under nutrition, we're going to look at calories, protein and macronutrients, meal timing, and the food groups. Starting with calories, calories are both a factor for weight loss and for muscle growth or muscle maintenance, which actually makes this a little bit of a challenging problem or question to solve. How many calories is it ideal to lose weight and build muscle? In order to explain this, I'm actually going to take us a few steps back. We measure energy that is in food and the energy that we burn every day doing normal activities like me doing this video right now, and the calories that I'm using, we measure that, both of those, in the unit of calories. The number of calories that you need per day is referred to as your total daily energy expenditure. This is the total amount of calories that you use throughout the day, thinking, seeing, breathing, just doing normal daily activities. Now, if you consume the calories from food that match that level of calories that you are burning per day, then that is considered eating at maintenance. The idea being that you can maintain your weight eating that level of calories. In order to lose weight, the idea is you have to eat fewer calories than you burn per day. However, in order to build and maintain muscle, it is actually thought that eating at calorie maintenance or eating at a little bit of a calorie surplus might actually be beneficial for that muscle. So we have kind of two competing ideas, the muscle, which is more calories, and we have the weight loss, which is less calories. My suggestion here is don't be too aggressive with your calorie deficit if you even need one at all. Here's what I mean. For a majority of individuals that I see, it's either I'm 100% on a diet or I'm in a free-for-all mode right now where I'm not even watching anything I eat and I really don't care. I'm suggesting that we meet in the middle a little bit. Instead of going to the extreme dieting measure and the other extreme, which is not really caring, coming into the middle and eating enough food, going in strength training, eating enough protein, making sure we're eating all of our food groups to make sure we're getting our vitamins and minerals so that we can create the most optimal environment for maybe not just general weight loss, but more or less losing body fat and building muscle. Now, if we do need a little bit of a calorie deficit, this is where I typically suggest not being too aggressive with a calorie deficit. Instead of cleaving off maybe 500 calories right off the top, instead maybe do like 10, 15% of the total calories, 200-300 calories, so that we're not dipping too deep into the calories that we need to make sure that we're using to maintain all of our other bodily functions. Next, let's talk about protein and macronutrients. Starting with protein, protein is going to be essential for supporting that lean body tissue or muscle mass. There seem to be a few different recommendations for protein intake based on lifestyle factors. So if we are trying to lose weight and we are in a calorie deficit, the recommended dietary protein intake is between 1.2 grams to 1.6 grams per kilogram per day. For a 165-pound individual, that's somewhere in the range of 90 to 120 grams of protein per day. Now, if we are an athlete and also trying to lose weight, meaning we work out regularly, we are maybe in a competitive sport, then that protein intake might bump up to 1.7 to 2.6 grams per kilogram per day. Somewhere in the range of 100 to 150 grams of protein for that 165-pound individual. Looking at one last category, which is competitive bodybuilders, when they are getting ready for a competition and they're cutting calories down, there have been other recommendations for protein intake closer to 2.3 grams, upwards of 3.1 grams per kilogram of lean body mass. So there are three different categories which we can try and plug into as far as what would be the ideal protein intake. For most, I would say anywhere between that 1.2 to 1.6 grams per day is going to be a little bit more ideal than the higher ranges or anything lower than that as well. As far as the other macronutrients are concerned, this would include dietary fat and carbohydrate. With regards to dietary fat and carbohydrate, this is where I like to state that diet adherence and you choosing a diet that you actually enjoy is going to be so much more important than actually adhering to like a dietary fat suggestion and a dietary carbohydrate suggestion. That being said, it is suggested that dietary fats should stay somewhere in the range of 15 to 30% of your daily calorie intake, or at least a half to 1 gram of dietary fat per kilogram. Carbohydrates are simply the remaining calories. Let's move on to meal timing and distribution. Your meal timing and distribution will have a huge impact on both supporting your muscle mass and supporting your weight loss goals. There are two categories, right? One for muscle and one for weight loss. So starting with muscle and how meal timing and distribution supports muscle tissue. Ideally, you want to have 20 to 30 grams of protein every few hours. Now, the reason for this is our bodies cannot store protein as protein in and of itself. It can only be packed on as muscle, and it'll actually leave as muscle as well, which is something we really don't want to have happen. Having regular meal timings of 2 to 3 hours can make sure that you have a consistent flow of protein coming in. Now on to the weight loss component of meal timing and distribution. If we have regular meal times where our bodies are kind of regulated to those times, we'll have a much easier time regulating our hunger. By simply planning and having regular meal times, you can not only support your weight loss goals, but you can also support your muscle mass as well. The last piece that we'll talk about here is the food groups. Focusing on consuming foods from the food groups, which include lean proteins, low-fat dairies, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, and nuts. A diet that is made up mostly of those foods will not only provide you with the calories and macronutrients you need, but it will also provide you with all the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, fiber that your body needs, in addition to making sure that you're not getting too much added sugar, saturated fat, alcohol, or too many calories in general. Let's go ahead and move on to our second section, which is exercise. Within exercise, we're going to be looking at resistance training, cardiovascular training, and overall daily movement. Starting with resistance training. Resistance training is going to be the key component in making sure that you maintain your muscle mass while also losing weight. If you take nothing else from this video, then making sure that you get a resistance training regimen in your weight loss journey, then I count this as a win. As far as resistance training is concerned, the research tends to point to more of the bodybuilding style, or what is also referred to as hypertrophy training, which includes 3 to 6 working sets of a specific exercise. So that might be 3 to 6 sets of dumbbell curls using 60 to 80% of your 1 rep max, maybe a little bit lighter weight, and doing roughly 8 to 20 repetitions of that movement. Somewhere in the range of doing 8 to 24 different exercises per muscle group per week. All of those combined seem to create the most optimal environment for muscle growth. If you pair that with your calorie deficit and try and offset some of the muscle loss during that period of time with resistance training, that could be a great way. If you paired resistance training with maintenance calories, that would also be a great way because you don't have to offset that calorie deficit and the impacts it'll have on muscle. For cardiovascular training, this is where I like to suggest the idea that it can be used as almost like a lever to pull you into a little bit of a calorie deficit if you want to. And you eat at maintenance, but you just add in a few extra days of cardiovascular training that you don't eat back. That could be a great strategy for folks. The way I like to think about the physical activity aspect is if I am in a fat loss or weight loss journey, I just generally try and increase my physical activity overall. Maybe instead of doing 30 minutes 5 days a week, now I'm just going to do an hour 5 days a week. Lastly, let's talk about daily movement. Now, what I don't want to have happen or have you think is that you need to go work out at the gym for an hour and get in your cardio and then you can sit the rest of the day. No, the goal really should be is to just have consistent movement throughout the day. And this could be as simple as just measuring your steps per day to make sure that you're on average getting somewhere in the range of 7,500 to 12,000 steps per day. More if you want to use that as a lever for weight loss and use that some of your cardio, but overall the goal should be to have just consistent daily movement throughout the day, just not long periods of sitting. The last and final category that we're going to cover in today's video is supplementation, and asking what are the best supplements for specifically weight loss without losing too much muscle. There are 4 supplements that come to mind for this specific question. First on that list is creatine monohydrate. There have been boatloads of studies looking at creatine monohydrate in combination with a resistance training program and its ability to preserve lean body tissue, improve lean body tissue, and improve performance overall. There seems to be some emerging research also to indicate that there might be some benefits of creatine for our brain as well. So as far as the first supplement on this list, I think creatine monohydrate is a go. The next supplement that is on this list is a multivitamin. As a dietitian, I know that a majority of Americans are walking around with some nutrient deficiency. What I don't want to have happen is you watch this video and go restrict your calories and restrict your eating and start eating off a meal plan and then miss nutrients even more. So for that reason, I am suggesting a multivitamin. Almost think of it as an insurance package, just to make sure that you're getting all the vitamins and minerals you need. As you are getting better and maybe you start tracking your food, you really start eating from the food groups for the majority of the time, you stop eating out so much, and you really start to dial in your nutrition, yeah, maybe you can get rid of the multivitamin. But for the meantime, I think for a majority of people, a multivitamin can just be a great insurance package. The third supplement on this list is protein powder. Now, I'm not saying protein powder is going to magically help you maintain your muscle or build muscle. Rather, I find it is just a really convenient and easy source of protein. When compared to a chicken breast or Greek yogurt, right, it has to be refrigerated and cooked. Protein powders are really easy and convenient to deal with. And seeing that we have a little bit of a higher protein recommendation, protein powder can make it much easier to consistently hit your protein goals. Last but not least, on the supplement lists that are ideal for weight loss without too much muscle loss is caffeine. I think caffeine can help you in two ways, both on the weight loss front and on the muscle building front. On the weight loss front, caffeine is a central nervous stimulant. It is providing you almost with an artificial source of energy in a way. We can use that to our advantage and maybe help blunt some of the hunger pains from the calorie deficit or just not getting enough energy in general. On the muscle building side of the equation, again, caffeine being a central nervous stimulant, caffeine has been shown to improve performance in athletic endeavors. So using caffeine prior to your resistance training session, you might be able to squeeze a few extra reps out, have a little bit better technique. Because we used supplementation from caffeine, thought behind this being that if you can produce more effort in the gym, you might be able to therefore see some better results as well. All right, I know that there was a lot of information here, so I just want to give you guys a quick recap and summary. Again, we were focused on the question of how do we lose weight without losing muscle? We looked at three categories of lifestyle and intake: nutrition, exercise, and supplementation. Under nutrition, we covered protein and macronutrients, meal timing and distribution, 5 food groups in addition to nuts and seeds. Then we looked at exercise, where we took a deep dive into resistance training, cardiovascular training, and just daily movement overall. Finally, we looked at 4 supplements that would be ideal for both losing weight and building muscle. Again, I'm Noah Casala. I'm a registered dietitian. I hope this answered your question. If you do have further questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. If you like this video and you got something out of it, I'd love for you to give it a thumbs up so that we can get it to other people as well. And of course, yeah, hit that subscribe button for more.